What's going on, everybody? Kalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 reasons to buy the BLU F91 5G in 2022. So let's get started. So my first reason to buy the BLU F91 5G in 2022 is the large display. Now with this phone, we're getting a 6.8-inch LCD display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 396, and an aspect ratio of 20.5:9. So as you can see here, this is a really large display, pretty much the largest size you can get for a smartphone, comparable to something like the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, a little bit bigger than the iPhone 13 Pro Max. The list really goes on. And of course, having a larger display is going to be great for content consumption because everything is going to show up a little larger, so you can more easily see the small details. In addition to this, not only do we have a really large display here, but with an aspect ratio of 20.5:9, we got a taller and more narrow form factor than usual, and this is a good thing for several reasons. First of all, if you're doing something like watching a video or looking at photos in landscape mode, for example, you're going to get a much more immersive experience. And in addition to this, if you're doing something vertical like reading, you'll be able to fit more content on the screen without scrolling as much. So in general, the size and dimensions of this phone are going to make it really good for content consumption. And another really cool thing about this is that even though it does have a pretty large display, it also has a nice slim design, so it's not too bulky. And if the size and dimensions weren't enough, we also got a really good quality image here with a 1080p resolution. Things are going to be really sharp and crisp, so again, content consumption is going to be even better. Now my second reason to buy the BLU F91 5G in 2022 is the battery. With this phone, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery that supports 18-watt fast charging. So first of all, this is pretty much the largest battery you can get in a smartphone, at least in the US, so you're going to get a ton of battery life here. So if you have a more mobile lifestyle where you're not always around a charger, this is going to be great because even if you're using your phone pretty heavily, you probably won't need to charge it during the day. In addition to this, with such a large battery, since you're probably going to start out with multiple days worth of battery life, as the battery degrades, which all batteries do, you're probably not going to notice it nearly as quickly since you're already starting out with more battery life than you need. So if you prefer to get one phone and keep it for a longer period of time without having to replace it, then this phone is going to be a great option for that. In addition to the battery size, we also do have 18-watt fast charging, and this fast charging works really well. And compared to other phones in this price range, most of them usually have 10-15-watt fast charging, but seeing that this phone does have 18, that's definitely a good thing because it's going to charge up even faster with the right fast charger. And if you're in a situation where you don't really have a lot of time to charge your phone, again, most likely if you have a more mobile lifestyle, or maybe you use a car charger or something like that, then having a battery that supports 18-watt fast charging is definitely a good thing. Now my third reason to buy the BLU F91 5G in 2022 is the processor. So internally with this phone, we are getting 8GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 810 processor. So that is a good amount of RAM. Typically, most phones around this price range only have 6GB, and there are plenty of them that only have 4. So seeing a phone like this that's under $250 having 8GB of RAM is definitely impressive. And of course, as the name of the phone suggests, we do get 5G connectivity here. And in this day and age, although 4G is not going away anytime soon, a 5G phone gives you access to the latest and greatest technology, the 5G network, all that stuff. So really now is as good a time as ever to buy a 5G phone. So if you're looking for something like that, then seeing that this phone does have 5G connectivity is a nice thing. But all that being said, I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone, and it came back with a single core score of 576 and a multi-core score of 1692. Now if you're not too familiar with this test, this might not mean a whole lot to you, because after all, you really do need to compare it to something. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and comparing your scores to these to see whether or not this phone would be an upgrade for you. Because again, these numbers by themselves don't really mean a whole lot. You really do have to compare it to something. But that being said, I've run this test so many times on so many different phones, so I can tell you just off the top of my head, this is a really good score, especially for its price range. It's right up there with phones like the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G, Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G, and lots of other mid-range 5G phones, most of which are at least a little more expensive than this one. So taking that into account, this phone is actually pretty fast for what it is. Now, as far as things you're going to be able to do with this phone, as I've been using it, I haven't experienced any performance issues, and I've been doing a decent amount of things with it, from stuff like social media, entertainment platforms, so streaming videos, stuff like that, and then even a little bit of mobile gaming, and everything's been running perfectly fine. I've had no issues whatsoever. Now, if you're doing something like playing Fortnite, or maybe video editing, or something that does take a lot of processing power, then you might see this phone struggle a little bit from time to time, because after all, even though this phone is really fast for what it is, it's nowhere near the level of a flagship phone like a Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra or an iPhone or something like that. So if you really want a bunch of processing power and super high performance like that, then maybe a more entry-level flagship phone like the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE or maybe the iPhone SE. In that situation, one of those might be a better choice for you. But if you're just trying to do more normal activities like browsing the web, going on social media, streaming videos, and a little bit of mobile gaming, then this phone absolutely has the processing power to get it done. Now, my fourth reason to buy the BLU F91 5G in 2022 is the interesting features it has. Now, with this phone, we're getting several different features that you don't typically find in phones in this price range. The first one here is wireless charging. This phone actually does support 10-watt wireless charging, so if you do happen to have a wireless charger lying around, then that's definitely a nice thing, especially if you put it on a desk, because a wireless charger is really good for cable management. And another cool thing about having wireless charging, especially in lower end phones like this, is say your charging port breaks or something like that, then typically without wireless charging, of course, you're either gonna have to fix it or throw it away and get a new one. And when it comes to a $250 phone like this, having the charging port fixed might not be worth the trouble, so you would basically just have to replace it. But with wireless charging, if your charging port breaks, you can just use wireless charging instead, and that way you can keep the phone a little longer without having to replace it. Now that's a really specific situational kind of thing, but in general, if you do like wireless charging but you don't really want to buy a flagship phone, then keep in mind that the BLU F91 5G is one of the few non-flagship phones that has this feature. In addition to this, similar to wireless charging, the BLU F91 5G has a really cool feature called wireless reverse charging that basically allows you to wirelessly charge another phone with this phone. Now if you want to learn more about how to actually use this feature, be sure to check out my tips and tricks video for this phone where I go more in depth about it. But basically, this is the feature, and once you turn it on, you can use it to charge any other phone that has wireless charging. Now, in addition to charging related features, the BLU F91 5G also has some really cool gesture features, and while these aren't really unique per se, they are really nice to have. We got stuff like the 3-finger screenshot, which is a real nice way to take a screenshot. And this phone is also one of the few non-Samsung phones that have single hand mode, which basically allows you to shrink the phone's display down so you can easily use it with one hand. Now, of course, there are plenty of other phones that have these features, but all the same, if you want a phone that has some of the more interesting, useful features, then the BLU F91 5G is a great option for that. Now, my fifth reason to buy the BLU F91 5G in 2022 is NFC. Now, this phone does have NFC, and in case you don't know what that is, NFC is the technology behind contactless mobile payment services, so stuff like Google Pay, Apple Pay, Amex Pay, Samsung Pay, all that kind of stuff. So without NFC, you can't use those services, and for whatever reason, there are plenty of phones in this specific price range that don't have it. So if you do like to use tap and pay services, you'll be happy to know the BLU F91 5G actually does have the technology to do it. But those were 5 reasons to buy the BLU F91 5G in 2022. Now there are actually a lot more reasons to buy this phone. It's a great device and probably BLU's best phone yet. But on the other hand, as with every phone, there are also several reasons why you might not want it. So if you want to learn more about that, be sure to check out my full review of it on the channel. And if you already have the phone and want to learn more about its features, definitely check out my tips and tricks videos and beginner's guide as well. But I hope you found this video useful and informative. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. But that's it for this video. As always, I will see you in the next one.